Hi and welcome to Indigo Starfire. My name is Bevin, and in this video I'm going to be doing some quick little love notes from your person. This is going to be a message cards only reading, and there are 3 groups to choose from. Group 1 is the Girasol Quartz. Group 2 is the blue Calcite. And group 3 is the Selenite. So if you want to take a moment to center, focus on your breathing, and feel whichever group, maybe multiple groups or perhaps all of the groups that you're most drawn to. I'll give you a minute to make your selection and then we'll get right into it. And there are timestamps in the description box of the video for each group if you would like to jump ahead. And up next is a close-up photo of the crystals to help you better make your selection. Hi, Group 1. You chose the Girasol Quartz. So I'm going to be getting 3 cards from 3 different decks, and let's see, what does your person want you to know right now from their higher self? Okay, and they say, I realized how I treated you, and for that, I'm sorry. So if there was some juggling going on in this situation, third-party energies, or if your person has been running hot and cold with you recently, the idea of kind of making promises energetically or even in terms of words that were spoken and then not necessarily following through completely or backing out, perhaps on plans that were made, or just an energy of really extending themselves towards you, kind of getting you to open up or to be more yielding, or a certain expectation that has been set about where things are evolving in this situation, or kind of a sense of readiness that you may have anticipated that they were at to take things to the next level, and then almost something where it's like a house of cards sort of falling apart in this circumstance. What had been built up sort of coming tumbling down. There's a sense of, even if you've been in very good spirits, you've had some, kind of dignity about this situation, just kind of moved away, with your head held high, have sort of redirected your focus, poured into your own cup, tried to really present this energy of being very unbothered by the circumstance, not really, expressing to this person the full range of your disappointment. Nevertheless, they have felt something energetically speaking, almost like the tears that you've cried very silently. These have reverberated to them. They're very aware of the awkwardness of, the disappointment. Again, there's an energy here of a lot of you maybe trying to play it off, play it cool, be very unbothered, not give this person a reaction, or trying to just really kind of deal with your own triggering very privately over what has occurred in this situation, that nevertheless, it's almost your energy has spoken volumes to them. The message has been sent. It has been made clear that they have mishandled this situation. They've squandered an opportunity with you. They've led to, a lot of confusion and dismay in this situation, and that it's kind of, they're sensing, it almost feels like doors of opportunity that are now closed or are closing. They may have felt that they had more time to make sort of a decision in this situation, even if there weren't third parties involved. This could even be residual heartbreak, kind of hung up on an ex. feeling that they were ready to sort of take things to the next level with you. They liked the buildup, they liked the momentum, but then when it came time to actually ground that down into physical reality by way of a deeper form of commitment or opening up about feelings, they may have really buckled or backed out at the last minute, sort of leaning into that polarity of fear, a distortion around love and partnership, their comfort zone, as uncomfortable as that might have been. But nevertheless, kind of even without words having been spoken, or maybe some of you gave your person a piece of your mind recently or in the near past, and that has really sat with them, whether this has been kind of silent communication, energetic communication, or a literal conversation that has taken place that it feels like has resulted in some sort of awkwardness or distance between the two of you. They are really reflecting upon this, and it is not lost on them kind of where they've mishandled you, where they've mishandled this opportunity, how they've been very kind of careless with your feelings, only sort of putting themselves and their own, the word grief is coming through, so maybe some heartbreak that they thought that they had healed from, were ready to move on in love and do a new connection, only to find out that they still had some unkept corners of their heart that they needed to deal with first. And rather than being very forthright about this, communicating clearly, it feels that it's almost like mixed signals were given, or a lack of follow through, or something that you were building really falling apart. And so in the process of them maybe, leaning back into old coping mechanisms, or taking this time, to reflect, being very much confronted by the reflection of the choices that they've been made, where they find themselves, the bed that they are now laying in. It's very fear-based. It's low vibrational. It's toxic. It is a contrast to what was being offered in this situation with you, even just energetically speaking, even if they're alone at this particular point in time, the energies that they're sitting with internally, it doesn't feel good. It's a very cramped space. It's a very kind of dusty and stale sort of energy that they're sitting in, and it's causing this almost this energy of envy, feeling very locked out in the cold, but realizing and recognizing that they put themselves there through an unwillingness to communicate fully, through mixed signals, through actions that were very different or contradictory to promises that were made, or even just sort of an energetic trajectory the two of you were on that they then sort of self-sabotaged or backed out of or rerouted from at the last minute. And almost the way that you've handled this situation, for some of you that have been very direct with this person, very assertive, or even just the way in which kind of your silence has spoken volumes to them, the message is really hit home, that they've got some cleanup work to do, that it's going to take a different approach this time around in order to be able to kind of earn that trust back, that if they're in a position then to return to your life, or to give more fully, or to try and warm up to the situation, they're very aware that it's going to require them to kind of do some work within themselves first and foremost, to be able to bring a different energy and more consistency to you moving forward. And they also say, I never knew what love was until I met you. So this can talk about old pain, old heartbreaks that were triggered, third-party situations in the form of unhealed wounds. Even if the two of you were single, unattached, or even just kind of casually dating in casual partnerships, it feels like the prospect of long-term love and partnership, maybe even things stemming from childhood and their upbringing, it's still a very wounded energy for them. It's still a very wounded and shadowy place, that it almost feels like they weren't necessarily fully aware of the scope of how great this wounding was, how much it's been playing puppet master in a lot of their kind of self-sabotage mechanisms, other missed opportunities in love and partnership outside of the course of this connection, just over kind of a duration of time, that you really have demonstrated to them kind of a higher potential of what's available in terms of partnership. But with that is also the mirrored energy of kind of the distortions and the contradictions, the baggage they are holding within their heart, or even certain conditions and situations that they have not let go of fully, either emotionally within themselves or in terms of other people that they are simultaneously dealing with, that they're really, it feels like have been in a crossroads recently, sort of the polarity of love versus the polarity of fear, and they've chosen that polarity of fear to either not extend themselves towards you, not follow through, not accept the cup of love you had to offer, not reciprocate that, kind of build up the level of expectation only to allow things to fall apart directly or indirectly. For some of you, this will be totally like ghosting, blocking, running back into the arms of a third party, into a comfort zone. That third party energy can also speak about, different kinds of addictions, things to sort of numb out or feed a sense of void within them that is almost, it's uncomfortable, but it's the comfort zone. It's an opposite polarity to more of a high vibrational experience of intimacy between two people on all levels, a higher caliber of sort of possibility and potential that opens up, that they feel opening up energetically in the times when they have been interacting with you, sort of in the aftermath of how those interactions, your energy really perfumes their reality. You're coming to them in dreams. They're feeling you energetically around. All these signs and synchronicities pointing to you, almost bringing forth a sense of like magic and possibility, a very romantic energy that may be a part of this person's kind of history. They could have been a very romantic person by disposition, but they've been let down so deeply in love in the past that they've stopped believing that fairy tales can have very positive endings. They may have just chalked up love as pure chemistry, as purely transactional, deep feelings, deep kind of intimacy on that intangible level. They may have these distortions that it doesn't last. It's not a proper kind of glue by which to sort of bond two people together. And so the elements of that which have existed in this connection, this kind of otherworldly quality, this electricity between the two of you, as much as it has coaxed them in the direction of stepping outside of the comfort zone, believing in love again in a very deep and almost pure level, and starting to take steps in that direction. It feels like for a lot of people, these triggers have been very, and these kind of wounds, maybe even other people they were dealing with are very reticent to let them go. As much as they're taking steps in your direction, they're almost being pulled back or kind of clawed back into this familiar energy of this dusty distortion that they've been living in, that has been their life, the internal landscape or their outward reality. And as much as they're now, it feels like for a lot of you, choosing internally or literally or energetically to sort of retreat into that corner, into that kind of personal darkness, they are nevertheless very aware of kind of the opposite polarity that you represent, that the connection between the two of you represents, that generates the times you spend together, how they feel inside and the aftermath of that, the nature of your interactions, as contradictory as those are to everything else they've been so familiar with, or that has been their pattern or their history or is their present reality. This is not lost on them, this kind of polarity, but it feels at this time that kind of fear has a very ugly grip upon them and has really pulled them into a state where it's almost bringing up, it feels like as well, a lot of kind of perceptions of lack within, that they may have run from you and the love that you had to offer, and kind of the nature of love and intimacy and connection that was available in this situation, because inside they don't feel worthy of that. They don't feel that what they have to bring to the table matches the vibration of what you're bringing to the table. And so as much as they were almost kind of intoxicated by the possibilities of this situation, they may have made some kind of a mistake, almost feeling like the sober approach, the most logical approach, the most sensible approach is to detach from something that felt almost like a situation that gives them wings, opens up these possibilities of something different from what they've known or what they haven't experienced in a while, or ever before. And it feels like for a lot of people, they're really regretting that decision, that choosing the logical approach, choosing the safe approach, choosing, to run back into the arms of distortion, literally or figuratively. They can't unsee what they have seen with you. They can't kind of turn off that energetic flow between the two of you, that there may be distance, the connection may be stretched a bit thin at this point, but there's still this active kind of back and forth between the two of you. They're watching you in this energy of authenticity and feeling very left out, but also very cognizant that they've put themselves in that position. They've locked themselves out in the cold, at a distance from a different kind of love, a possibility of love, the seeds and potential of love, or the blossoming of love that is unlike what they've known before or have experienced in a while. So there's a yearning for that, a wanting to come back in closer to your life, to earn access or to gain access to your heart again. They also say, I think of you every day. That is how much I love you. So you're definitely on their mind. They're feeling your energy around. They are wrapped in thought, wrapped in regret. The grass is not greener wherever it is that they are, even if they're alone at this point in time. Certainly, if they've returned to a third party, the luster of that has worn off. The reality of kind of why that situation was on the rocks in the first place, why it fell apart in the first place, why that was not a circumstance in their best interest, or even the reality of something that is long since past its expiration date that they keep trying to revive or kind of hold together or stitch together these very kind of broken and tattered pieces of a circumstance that just needs to fall apart. They're very much recognizing that a decision to sort of invest, to try to repair, hoist this back up, or to just sort of coddle or nurture this kind of energy of distortion within, they can't escape from the reality of realizing that they are missing out on something else, something better, something different. Even if this is a situation where this was just seeds of potential between the two of you, a chemistry, a connection, it hadn't really gotten that far off the ground. Maybe it was at the point of moving on to the next level, taking things a step further, someone even getting close to the brink of confessing their feelings for you, only to back out at the last minute. That decision is really something that is weighing heavily in a sense of regret. Whatever has compelled them back in the direction of fear, of kind of making a mistake, taking you for granted, not valuing your time and attention, and the quality of your interactions when they had that in a more direct or regular basis. This is also really bringing them to this deep awareness that the choice that they have made is in direct kind of opposition to their highest good. It's in direct opposition to kind of the yearning that their soul has to experience, to crack open more deeply those seeds of potential, to build and grow and to develop into a type of love and connection that is very foreign to them. It's very unknown. It holds a lot of mystery and yet a magnetic pull as well. They've not been able to successfully detach from you or from this kind of like yearning. It feels like they're trying to just sort of dump themselves into maybe work, different sorts of vices and addictions to kind of numb out these feelings, numb out these thoughts, a lot of distractions, pouring themselves fully into a third party situation if they've kind of run back to something, or even if they're alone and that third party energy is just sort of heartbreak and distortion, a lot of fear of love, a lot of mistrust, a lot of lack mentality within. They're leaning into their familiar coping mechanisms that just reinforce that narrative. But with that is kind of this yearning as well, this knowledge, this sinking feeling and a heaviness that the more they participate in whatever this is and in whatever way they're doing that, kind of the deeper they're sinking away from sort of the redemptive power of love that they had touched upon with you, the chance to experience a different type of partnership and connection that they have known before, something that is very much the opposing force but in a positive way of what they're currently embroiled in, what they've recently come out of and maybe run back into, or what has just been kind of swimming around and circulating, kind of festering in the heart space, that you represent a door to something else, and it's a process of grieving and regret that they've chosen the wrong door in this situation. And they also say, I'm sorry I triggered you. So the tears that you are crying are echoing deeply within this person at a soul level. Even if you're holding your head high, you've moved forward with dignity and grace, you're, kind of just accepting their choice. You're not allowing this to sort of, diminish your flare, diminish your light in any way. You're trying to move forward from this energy of almost feeling passed over or left behind, discarded for some of you, or undervalued, taken for granted. That's part of kind of your healing process. It feels like to sort of alchemize and process this pain and this disappointment into something by way of wisdom, motivation for you to start to kind of pour within yourself or do what you need to do for kind of like self-care. Maybe you've retreated, you've sort of pulled back into your own energy, you've gone kind of quiet, kind of still. You're processing this very much behind closed doors. Nevertheless, what you're going through, and this feels like it also ties into an element of that it's allowing this person to see how deep the connection between the two of you runs, because even even in the distance, even as the connection is stretched very thin, it's like they're right there with you in this grief. They're right there with you in that internal landscape of how much this hurts, how much disappointment there is, how much confusion over the promises made and kind of the lack of follow through or momentum that was building only to have things fall apart. There's an understanding as well of kind of some mutual wounds that have been mirrored here, kind of a lack of value, a lack of self within this person. They're not understanding kind of the wealth that they had to offer to this connection and just who they are. That might have been something, these kind of qualities within them that had been awakened or stirred in their dealings with you. These may have been things that people in the past had undervalued or had ridiculed, and so it's kind of like hurt people. They've turned around and sort of undervalued or ridiculed or discarded kind of the precious elements and moments between the two of you. And there's also this energy of recognizing that it's stirred up a lot for you as well. Feelings of maybe not being good enough, inadequacy, a feeling of having opened yourself, extended your trust, opened your heart, only to be kind of like hurt or misused or taken advantage of in some way. There's sensing that you've put walls around yourself, that it's going to be more difficult for them to gain access to you once again because of sort of the events that have played out. But it's also this recognition on a deep level of kind of the triggering, the wounding that has now been kind of surfaced within both of you through these interactions and dealings, that there's a larger purpose to be accomplished here. They're still sitting in a bit of kind of pity party, crying over spilt milk, sort of feeling at a distance, having locked themselves out in the cold, looking to you, looking to your light, looking to your energy, looking to the memories with a sense of longing and like wishing that they were there, wishing they'd made a different decision. Understanding that the only way to get back to that is to build a bridge in a different way out of themselves and towards you in a stronger and more confident and kind of articulated version of themselves, rather than with all these kind of fractured bits rolling around. There's a recognition as well, though, from the higher self level, of course, that there's something to be gained out of the situation for you as well. They may even be kind of, in terms of like healing, in terms of the wounds that have been kicked up, now it has been reflected to you, aspects and areas that you're needing to kind of build upon. If you're feeling very rejected, this may even be for a lot of you acknowledging that this person's inability to kind of meet you at your level is not a reflection of the quality of love you had to offer, rather than internalizing that pain and kind of sinking into this energy of lack within yourself. Your challenge here, the trigger here might be for you to really instead capitalize upon and seize the moment to recognize your value and your worth, independent of another person's ability to reciprocate that or receive that or kind of meet you at that level. So they are understanding and kind of feeling here that whatever disappointment, whatever ways you're alchemizing this pain, they're with you energetically on this process. They're kind of, it almost feels like their karma to have to sort of like feel what you're feeling there. They're picking up on a lot of this kind of, heaviness or anxiety or rage or sorrow or disappointment. Even the hopefulness as you're trying to just sort of pick your vibration up, redirecting the focus into sort of nurturing yourself at this point in time, that it's very instructional for them at kind of things they may have overlooked about you as a person, you being the most kind of stable choice if it was them and, juggling you and another person, that how the other individual they may have gone toward or sort of returned to, how that person deals with triggering and sort of difficulties. It might be a little bit of codependence, somebody who likes to project blame. They're seeing you in the opposite energy as taking kind of personal responsibility, taking sort of the darkness that you've been handed and using that as creative potential to sort of build in a new direction for yourself. All of this, it's very much, it's triggering them into a deep sense of awareness through triggering you and your responsiveness, even your reactiveness to them, how you're handling this situation. It's educating them in a very profound way of kind of the nature of precisely what they've walked away from, precisely what they have overlooked, precisely what, if you'd be willing to sort of entertain them again or take them back into your world and into your reality, kind of the personal growth that is necessary in order for them to come to a place of readiness to be able to offer you something that comes from a higher vibration, rather than with all this kind of clutter and distortion where it's just kind of wounds clattering against one another. They also say, wait for me. So there's a sense here of you drifting away, a window of opportunity closing, ways in which you are handling the situation. Even if it's very fresh disappointment, there's just a turning point that they're recognizing, something very subtle and energetic that even you might not perceive at this point, but that you're starting to sort of set your sights on healing, on building out of this situation, coming to terms, coming to a place of acceptance, not embodying and kind of wearing this woundedness as a cloak, not wearing this woundedness or this darkness that they almost dumped upon you as sort of your own. You're kind of like handing that back to them. You're triggered, but you're also in this energy of kind of disconnecting, sort of what has been projected versus kind of like what is yours to own. And it's a sense of the more you're growing and healing and evolving beyond this, the more it's raising the bar as far as what is required for them in order to be able to gain access to you again. So it feels like for a lot of people, they're still just sitting in this energy of kind of like watching from afar, sitting in a situation that they've chosen, feeling a sense of almost foreboding or a little bit of doom at kind of what they've chosen, what they've walked away from, what was sacrificed, what was the cost, what was the expense of a choice that was made, and a sense of kind of like time running out, or there being a finite amount of time. For some, even an understanding that, their decision, maybe this is someone you've gone back and forth with for a while, and this is kind of like the final straw. That door has been closed, that it would take a miracle or some kind of very profound transformation on their part in a multifaceted, multifold level in order to be able to kind of move into proximity with you. For others, they are recognizing on like a subtler soul level that window of opportunity is gone for this lifetime, that it's kind of the end of the road for them. And again, their karma, their kind of the bed they now have to lay in is this understanding of sort of what the cost is, or what exists when one chooses the path of fear when confronted with the path of love is another kind of option. And so a very important kind of like life lesson or soul lesson at this particular point in time. Somebody who might be in the process, it feels like, of strategizing to try to find a way back to you, especially if this is a situation where there isn't like a literal physical third party actively involved. This could just be somebody who was very triggered, very afraid of love. They never knew what love was until they met you. They had all these distortions, all these perceptions, all of these people who had been very careless with their heart, who had left kind of muddy footprints all over their heart and all over the idea of kind of like love and connection on a deep and intimate level. And so that might have been something that when it reached that point of opening up and experiencing that, deeply reciprocating with one another, it could have brought up a lot of these wounds and they ran. In that case, again, it's a sense of regret over how they have treated you, but more likely for the people where there's not like a literal third party, warm-bodied person physically in their life at this point in time, or it just kind of goes to the past. Those individuals, it feels like, are trying to strategize some sort of way forward. It's kind of like, wait for me. I see where I've made my mistake. I see where I've made my error. I am now looking in the mirror. I don't like what I see. It's very ugly. This is kind of a part of my own shadow, almost an energy of gratitude with that, sort of like, thank you for showing me my shadow just by being in this polarity of kind of higher vibration and light within you. It has reflected to me my own personal darkness, my decision to run. It's been very educational, but I need to find a way kind of beyond this to sort of neutralize or cauterize this wound in order to be able to move towards you with something more consistent to give. And so it's a sense of understanding in all of those possible situations. Time is of the essence, that kind of like the more they dawdle, the more they take their time, the more they sort of feed in that wound or distortion, that they numb themselves out, that they avoid, that they just sort of sit there watching wish fulfillment kind of grow and evolve and move out of reach. The more they sit in the energy of self-pity and self-loathing, that this is something that it doesn't make kind of the pain or the weight or the heaviness of the gravity and nature of the decision that was made. It doesn't make it any lighter, any less. And so it feels like something where it's almost their choices are now compounding upon them, but that might just be the type of pressure that is necessary in order to enact radical change within them on a personal level that can change ultimately how they're moving back towards you, how they're investing more deeply in this connection, what they're doing if they are, able to kind of move towards you, garner your attention again, kind of get into proximity with you again, sort of what they're going to bring to the table this next time around. They also say, I am still moved by you. So this ties into the element of the two of you still being very energetically tied and tethered to one another. The fact that they have not been able to fully disconnect, they have not been able to sufficiently kind of numb out, suppress, stuff, or deny their feelings, any sort of third-party energies, even if it's just dancing around with the ghosts of the past in their heart. Love stinks, love isn't real, love is just a fairy tale, all of those kind of illusions that they may have been telling themselves. It feels very bitter and very stale. It's not satisfying to them because they keep being reminded of this sense of unexplored potential, uncharted waters that may have kind of really stirred within them a deep romanticism that they haven't felt for a long time. They haven't felt since they were younger, since they were a child, or ever, that has ever stirred within them. But that's a direct kind of contradiction. It's a contrast to sort of the way that people in today's world view love and partnerships as far as contractual, kind of just like a turn and burn culture of romance that we are living in a very large way in modern times. That something about this connection, this experience with you, it contradicts all of those ideas. It contradicts all of that kind of jargon that's out there, all of this person's experiences, real time in terms of connecting with other people. It contradicts sort of what partnership looks like for others in their lives, what it's looked like growing up, the views that they've had. This is a very confrontational energy that they're feeling. They're very much beckoned in the direction of moving towards you and confronted with kind of all the untruths they are holding within that will not allow them and has not allowed them up to this point in time, or have not allowed them up to this point in time, to fully kind of succumb and surrender and just immerse and be filled by the beautiful potential between the two of you. Regardless of kind of how that turns out, it's a sense of tasting something energetically, emotionally, intimately, that is very foreign to them. It's very unknown. It's very alluring to them. You have this intoxicating effect upon them, this mesmerizing, this magnetic effect upon them. And yet there is this deep, wounded core within them that is mistrusting of this, that is fearful of this, that's almost kind of like fearful of getting what they want, fearful of wish fulfillment. A part of them may have really been kind of starving for this type of affection or intimacy and has called you in. When confronted with the reality of you and kind of things are going well, it's almost the idea of right at that brink of kind of diving in deeper, of really being made a believer in kind of the magic of love that can exist, despite all of the kind of apathy and pessimism that circulates around them, that sort of filters through the culture that they personally have experienced. That this was something that really awakened and brought to life within them a hopefulness that has never been experienced before or since, and certainly is not the case. And whatever, if there's like a literal third party, it's certainly not the case in that situation. As familiar as those two people might be with one another, it is nothing like what they have experienced with you. And this is something that it keeps drawing them back, drawing their attention, drawing their energy to this awareness of having made a grievous mistake here, choosing the wrong path, and a sense of fear of like, how long are they going to have to live with these consequences? Is it possible to undo this? Is it possible to kind of bridge the gap, bridge the distance, make up for lost time, gain access to your heart again? Are you ever going to be able to trust them? Are you ever going to be able to let them in? Are they ever going to be able to sort of move beyond their own distortions and the mechanisms of self-sabotage that cause them to take such a powerful potential and connection for granted and kind of do what they've done in this situation up till now? They also say, I made a mistake. So confirmation there. Grass is not greener on the other side. Even if they're alone right now, they're just alone with their thoughts. They're alone with the ghosts of the past, and have chosen to put up some kind of energetic wall, energetic block, have chosen to run from you, push you away, kind of just circle around in this energy of like superficiality. Maybe this is a situation where you're friends and feelings developed and it was at the brink of kind of taking things further, and they buckled at the last minute, and they're trying to just maintain this facade of, no, it's just surface level. I don't possibly feel anything for you or want anything more. They're understanding that it was a window of opportunity that took some time to create between the two of you, and that it ultimately has worked in their disservice in a big way to sort of not take that leap of faith, to not step through that door, to not express themselves, to not let you in, to not reciprocate or accept the cup of love you had to offer, to not give you a cup of love, to not trust and have faith in this kind of magical and otherworldly quality between the two of you. The electricity, the synchronicities, the deja vu, the signs, the energetic connection, the telepathic bond, all of that energy that is so outside of the box for this person. It's so unlike what they have ever experienced in their personal history. It's unlike other connections currently in their reality, in their waking life. They still feel so tethered and tied to you. There's still an active communication going on through your higher selves, through your souls, through this kind of energetic substance that has kind of been awakened or illuminated, that flows between the two of you, even in the midst of separation, that it's almost sort of, regardless of what they do or do not do in this situation moving forward, this is an education for them at this particular point in time. It's almost like they couldn't truly see or appreciate or comprehend the value or the nature of your connection had it not been for this element of kind of throwing it to the side, sacrificing it, letting it go, not moving toward it, not accepting this full potential. That it is only in this energy of kind of spilt milk that they are truly able to understand the quality and nature of what they have with you, what they've experienced with you, what still exists on a certain level, energetically speaking, between the two of you, despite the complications in a 3D sense, or any kind of like disconnect, silence, or kind of wedge that is between the two of you in a 3D sense. Still, beyond all of that, this bond kind of permeates everything. It transcends everything. It transcends the 3D. And so in this period of education, it's really hitting home kind of what the prize was when they chose the path of fear versus what the rewards or the potential, all of this untapped potential, all of this kind of limitless, unexplored mystery between the two of you that would have been available to them had they chosen to be more consistent, to invest with you, to kind of walk that path of love further with you than they have. They also say, I'm ready to open up. So with that energy of regret is also the idea of, give me another chance. If only I could turn back time, I would do things differently. For those of you where there is not it, and even for some of you where there's kind of like a warm-bodied third party in the mix here, somebody that they've returned to, that they are recognizing kind of why they chose to leave that situation in the first place, or kind of they're now recognizing that like that circumstance, as beautiful as it might have been at one point in time, has kind of reached its expiration date, past its expiration date. Those two people have sort of learned from each other everything they were meant to learn in this lifetime, and that it's time to kind of break away. That at this point in time is just a coping mechanism. It's like codependency. It's a crutch to sort of continue to feed energy into that situation. It's gone as far as it has, and it may even be something that is kind of, it's starting to sort of decay from the inside out, because it's two people with sort of destinies in other directions that are entertaining one another in the 3D sense at the expense of kind of other things they are meant to experience in this lifetime, other partnerships, other dynamics of relationship that are kind of available to them on further timelines, that they're prolonging that, they're delaying that, they're missing other opportunities for themselves. So for some of you in situations like that, it's definitely the energy of kind of like strategizing, Finding a way beyond kind of the distortions within, finding a way beyond the wounds, finding a way beyond these patterns, trying to find a way to build a bridge towards you, to open up, to be honest, maybe to confess some of these fears, fears about love, maybe make some drastic confession about their romantic history, a romantic side of this person, or an emotional side of this person, or just an open side of this person that you caught a glimpse of perhaps, but they were very inconsistent with, or there were glimmers of this, but they never fully sort of moved into that territory. It's almost the idea of like King of Cups energy, a lot of deep emotions, but they've been holding that back. They're really leaning into this sense through this education of what the distance, what the ramifications of their choices is teaching them, or has taught them, is kind of like actively teaching them in real time, that if sort of they are able to change this narrative arc, course correct the destiny between the two of you, make the necessary changes internally or externally in their world and in their reality, if they're given another chance, if you will hear them out, if you will kind of meet them at that threshold of possibility once again, it's almost this vow or commitment to themselves to give more than they have in the past. There's a recognition this is necessary, that it's going to take a bold leap of faith for them, beyond what they're accustomed to doing in love and partnerships, beyond what feels kind of safe for them, that on the other side of that kind of sense of panic or dread is the growth that leads to kind of grounding down into reality in a more of a permanent sense, this magical potential between the two of you. They may have felt fear and took that almost as a sign of like, okay, this isn't the situation for me, so I'm just going to run back into something that feels more comfortable. But it feels like they're really starting to recognize at this point kind of fear as false evidence appearing real. That whatever had been stirred or triggered within them, it was just sort of a coping mechanism. It was like a wound within them that was fearing the unknown, fearing, kind of getting that wish fulfillment, experiencing something positive in love and romance by, instead of just kind of more of the reinforcement of love turns sour, love doesn't last, love isn't real, whatever that distortion looks like, whatever that kind of woundedness looks like, that in some way the condition between the two of you, the circumstance between the two of you, the possibility between the two of you, it represents a medicine, it represents like a balm for them. And they're yearning for that. They're wanting to move towards you, to give more to this connection. A lot of these people may just be in the energy of sort of like sitting and watching that far distant horizon, kind of wishing for another opportunity. But then it does feel like there's a fair number of people here in kind of these energies that are starting to really map a course of action. At the very least, just sort of taking an honest look within themselves and starting to try to figure out kind of like, why did I do this? Why did I work so hard to kind of, build to whatever point the two of you are at before things fell apart, or kind of what is the greater sort of implication of why the universe has brought the two of you together? What is this situation meant to teach in a very positive way? How can they kind of master this woundedness within self so that this is not an opportunity of wish fulfillment that just passes them by in the long term, so that they can course correct, they can come back around, they can try and redeem themselves in some manner. They also say, I'm taking action. So very positive energy to end this reading for whatever sort of element, whatever the details are for the particular person in the circumstance, whether this is just like fear of love that drove them away, ghosts of the past and distortions that had them disbelieving in kind of the potential between the two of you, or some kind of like third party interference, something that they moved back toward, or had a difficult time kind of fully breaking away from, or they had made you feel like kind of an option or a choice in this situation. It's the idea of determination here, that ultimately they are headed toward a course of trying to make up for lost time, trying to do something different. That idea of taking action can even just be looking very directly in the mirror at themselves, perhaps for the first time ever, that ultimately this circumstance, how things have played out, it has been for a larger reason. Part of them understands that. This may be a very hard pill to swallow. This is a very tough love lesson, it feels like. Something where if they're given another opportunity with you, if you would take them back, if they come to that point where they're able to strategize, able to work up the courage, able to bring you something on a higher vibration that kind of meets you where you're at, as you continue to grow and heal through your journey, through your process of kind of coming to terms with what has happened. You know, it's something where it's a determination that is starting to be built. Something needs to change. Something needs to give. Something needs to shift within themselves, within their circumstances. You know, so it's almost kind of like enough is enough sort of energy right here. So in various ways, it might even just, you know, for those that are even sort of in a third party situation with another person, this idea of I'm taking action can be looking at that circumstance, looking at that situation, again, feeling that the grass was not greener on the other side, knowing that, recognizing that very profoundly and fundamentally, and really sort of leaning into this chapter now of asking themselves that question: why then have I chosen this? Why, when confronted with, you know, the possibility of something else, would I sort of lean back into settling for what I know is not fulfilling, for what just reinforces a sense of brokenness within? So different people at kind of different stage of sort of a planning and a strategy, sort of like revving up their engines to take some sort of dramatic turn of events for them personally. If that's introspection, that would be that form of a dramatic turn of events, then it feels like they're kind of nearing that point. They can't just sit and sort of watch you drift away forever. They can't just sit in the energy of self-pity and self-loathing forever. So there's something that is meant to be kind of gained or learned from this situation. For others, it's strategizing a way to try to build a bridge towards you, try to come up with some sort of apology. It feels like by way of changed action, though. In all these circumstances, this individual is recognizing it even just requires them kind of mastering some, or coming to a deeper understanding of some level of wounding within them that has kind of led to this series of events, so that they're able to present you not with empty promises, but almost with a changed energy, something that they have overcome within themselves that can help to, you know, overcome potential difficulties between the two of you in the future, or to kind of get you both back on good footing with one another, so that you're building on solid ground this time, rather than just kind of replicating another house of cards between the two of you. So I'm going to get some initials, and this can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or it can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Got P, M, D, H, V, J, R, D, K, W, A, R, S, H, F, Y, T, N, I, E, and N. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters, including a longer video version of this reading that involves more cards and more decks. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link to that in the description box of the video, as well as in the channel section of my page. The format over there consists of readings related to topics other than love and romance. So if you're looking for something a little different from me, that is the place to find it. I thank you for your support there, as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 2. Chose the blue calcite. So I'm going to be getting 3 cards from 3 different decks, and let's see, what does your person want you to know right now from their higher self? Okay, and they say, I cherish those moments we spent time together. I miss you. So if communication has kind of ebbed down between you and your person, maybe you've been very busy with your lives, busy with other commitments, or some kind of misunderstanding, awkwardness, fight, almost an energy as well of kind of a building of intimacy and connection between the two of you. And they may have really dropped the ball as far as opening up about deeper feelings, confessing their feelings to you, making some kind of commitment, taking things a step further that almost feels to have dissolved or fizzled some kind of intensity or momentum between the two of you. It's a sense of almost like an unconscious letdown that may be very unspoken between you, but is just sort of hanging in the air of the connection. There's a sense of yearning and nostalgia and trying to almost figure out a way to sort of build back up into that place of being very on point with one another, finishing one another's sentences, being very much in the moment, generating this very powerful electric charge between the two of you, having these deep dive conversations about just a myriad of things, almost kind of like simultaneously you're having 3D interactions with one another, and your higher selves are also really in collusion in real time, almost like that distance between 3 and 5D not existing at all, and just being very, very enveloped in one another in the moment, even in very kind of like simple experiences, some level of kind of chemistry between the two of you that is just out of this world. It's something they've never really experienced before. This could have brought up a lot of fear within them about taking things a step further, almost kind of like the wings of love, or the seeds of love that were developing between the two of you. It brought them up into this energy of this height with you. You're very much moving in tandem. You're on point with one another. And then they looked down, got afraid of how far outside of their comfort zone they had come. They had risen, how far beyond the parameters of what they've known of love and partnership, this connection, this dynamic, what you built between the two of you, what that was leading to, ways in which they almost maybe started to compare this connection, some of the kind of like otherworldly, electric qualities, the deja vu, the telepathy, the soul speak between the two of you, all of these different things. Maybe they opened up to, some kind of like third party about it, a friend or a family member, somebody, and the person judged it, kind of like, what are you talking about? That sounds weird. That doesn't sound normal. That doesn't sound natural. That doesn't, they weren't really like understanding or vibing with the way in which this person was really just, kind of enamored or just very gleeful and very enthusiastic, very joyous about the connection, and the things that they were describing. Maybe even just people that were a little bit jealous of the vibration that your person was holding, kind of lifted up on the wings of love with a spring in their step, and then having a lot of kind of lower vibrational people or naysayers, people that are kind of like envious of that, sow seeds of doubt within them, or pick at them, trigger them, try to bring them back down in their vibration in a certain way, distract them with other things, come up with tasks or chores, or even some people they're dealing with that are codependent, that kind of were not liking sort of the very positive changes developing in your person as a result of their dealings with you, their interactions with you, the alchemy of the two of you on an energetic level, and the positive effect that was then having, the ripple effect off into other areas of their life. There's a sense of regret at having let other things come in between the two of you, or other people. It feels like for most of you, this isn't necessarily like a romantic third party. It's just kind of like the opinions of other people, or a sense of doubt within, where they almost just stopped believing in kind of what the two of you were building, or they started to question that, or doubt that at such a core level that it just sort of, it took the winds out of the sails. They took their eye off of this situation, in such kind of a deeply rooted and fearful way, even just momentarily, or they started to kind of lean in that direction, and it gradually, or very suddenly for some of you, kind of deflated what the two of you had built with one another, what you're experiencing. And it's a sense of missing that, a sense of almost questioning or questing, and saying, how can we get back to that? How can we rebuild that magic, that intimacy between the two of us? What is necessary in order to kind of revive this connection in that manner, to lean back into that place where, we're lifting one another up, we're feeling very uplifted about our interactions with one another. This can also speak about, if they've got a lot of distractions or busyness in the material world, and, this doesn't really necessarily have to do with fear, but just very practical things which have kept you both in a distance, created an energy of time, a chunk of time where you're not connecting regularly, or at all for some of you, that this is almost like absence is making the heart grow fonder. They're appreciating you more. They're missing you more. This chunk of distance is actually serving very appropriately to reinforce. It's giving them a wider perspective, almost like a bird's eye view of the very precious nature of what the two of you share with one another. That's almost making them want to fight more for this, to preserve this, to rebuild this, or to keep this intact when the time comes for the two of you to sort of move closer toward one another again. They also say you are always on my mind. So they may be sending you love from afar, telepathic messages, thinking about conversations, interactions between the two of you, having conversations with you in their mind to kind of like pass the time through any sort of period where, other kind of duties or obligations are keeping you both at a distance from one another. It's thoughts as well about the future, kind of seeing this situation, what you've had with one another, what you've shared, maybe even ways in which the doubt of other people or the distortions of other people had sort of colored this person's view of what the two of you had with one another in such a manner that they were almost kind of seeing red flags or looking for red flags where there weren't necessarily that element to be had, rather than kind of going with the momentum, going with the flow, expanding their mind and kind of just suspending disbelief as they're moving through this process of kind of expanding into some unknown territory, energetically and romantically speaking. Again, kind of other people, or even just comparing sort of what they had with you with what they've known of love before, what love looks like for other people in their world and their reality, and kind of seeing the differences between the situation with you and what is known and familiar, kind of their worldview, their wheelhouse, so to speak, in terms of love, rather than seeing this as something of kind of like extraordinary potential. There may have been a questioning that sort of was involved here, that they're really, it feels like it's almost taken this kind of energy of doubt to help them really sort of conceptualize and to understand that this is truly a unique bond between the two of you. You're always on their mind. The situation is always on their mind. Their mind is expanding and changing by virtue of how they are now seeing the world through your eyes, things that you've talked about, energies you've exchanged with one another, all of these kind of extraordinary phenomenon that go beyond just the 3D dealings of the two of you with one another. All of this is starting to make them question the nature of their reality, how they've been living their life up to this point, the future they had envisioned for themselves, almost trying to rewrite rewrite that script, widen that possibility to say, how can I make more room for this connection? How does this connection, what we're developing into, what we have, what I want to rebuild, how can I make room for that in my future in a way that both fits in kind of with the world that they have right now and almost in defiance to the world that they have right now, especially if there is like other people that may have been doubting when they were trying to share their good news or their elation, or, you know, people that were kind of picking at their vibration to sort of lower them down a notch, bring them down into more of that kind of comfortable sort of lukewarm or like a settling, something that they'd been really accustomed to. People in their lives may have been very triggered by positive changes within this person energetically, because it signaled kind of the end of an era of a particular way or a version of them they'd been accustomed to dealing with or had connected with. And so on an unconscious level, there may have been people trying to sort of pick at them and sort of bring them down a peg, which could have really then had a ripple effect to them not investing as much attention in the situation, not being as enthusiastic, not exchanging with you in quite the same way. And it's almost like they're seeing that from a fresh lens. The blinders have been taken off. Distortions are now being clarified or cleansed, and it's really changing their view of kind of reality, the company they've been keeping, the views of love they've had, ways in which they're kind of like yearning for something more in this situation, and almost being challenged to accept the fact that perhaps in this situation, in many ways, it's just going to have to exist as something which defies what people around them or what they've known up to this point in time define as kind of like a successful partnership, a dynamic between two people, that there's almost something transcendent about these energies that's beyond just sort of ordinary love. It's a higher love. It's access to that higher portal and plane between the two of you, and also in terms of themselves as well. It feels like you've opened a lot of doors for this person, in terms of their worldview, in terms of their kind of understanding of the nature of reality. Things you've mirrored to them, both the light and shadow, has really got them questioning themselves at this point in time. It's a curiosity, though. It's almost like aspects of themselves that they're seeing sort of embodied in you, that as they're dealing with that or seeing it or interacting with it, it's helping them to understand themselves in a different level, in a different way. So there's some kind of like deep healing and transcendent process that it feels like is happening at this point, both as this person is thinking about what the future between the two of you may hold, and also kind of where they are right now and sort of what needs to be shed or loosened or let go of in order to make space for kind of that future potential to blossom most effectively. They also say, I want to be honest with you so that we can be open with each other. So they may be trying to sort of recreate a moment of opportunity where in the past they have hesitated to open up about their feelings or take the situation further. It's a sense of regret at having missed that, at having kind of taken their eye off the prize for a moment, at sort of losing the luster of this circumstance or situation, or almost an energy of deflation or disappointment that might be largely unspoken and just sort of subtle or energetic between the two of you. There's an energy here of them wanting to move back to that crossroads somehow and make a different decision. Even if it's kind of like other duties or obligations that are keeping you both at a distance from one another. There's a chunk of time where you're not talking. It's almost the idea of like they're planning when they're next kind of around you, when you're next connecting with one another, when things kind of get back to normal or they settle down and you're able to resume your ordinary sort of dealings with one another. They're determined to kind of dive in more deeply than they have up to this point in time in this connection. They miss you now that you're apart. They miss the intimacy that you share. They miss that electricity. They want more of it. If they were at all sort of skeptical or a bit kind of guarded or overly discerning about the situation, it's almost sort of like distance, time, or even some kind of misunderstanding, argument, or kind of just crossed wires between the two of you, like the meaning being lost in translation in a certain way. So maybe it's like a long distance connection, or there could be like a language barrier between the two of you, a culture barrier, all these different things where it's almost just you weren't necessarily in the past able to fully kind of understand or interpret what the other was really meaning. Your love languages might have been very different from one another. You're both looking toward the same horizon, but kind of building toward that in different ways. There's an energy of wanting to collaborate with you more. to correct any misunderstandings, to be able to give you more of a preview or a deeper access to not just who they are on an emotional level, but specifically their feelings in regards to you. If this is something where love or romantic feelings or affection has not been articulated, it's just been implied up to this point in time, there is desire to be very forthcoming about that. I have feelings for you. I like you. I'm attracted to you. I have fallen in love with you. I love you. Like any number of those things can definitely be sort of what they're in the process of getting ready to express to you, that they're wanting to sort of do something, provide some sort of offering or a giving of themselves, or some kind of demonstration or a declaration that leaves nothing to chance. It leaves nothing to a misunderstanding. It's almost like a grand gesture that they're hoping will kind of pivot the two of you back into this level of the meeting of the mind, seeing eye to eye, that deep transcendent connection between the two of you. It's an understanding that in order to really kind of pivot up to that, it's going to require more than they have given to this connection up to this point in time, or something pretty drastic that may be long overdue, where they had just missed their chance the first time around. These feelings have not subsided. They've continued to grow. It's almost just kind of a gift, a package, a delivery that is intended for you, and they miss the opportunity to kind of present that to you. They're still holding that within themselves. They still have that there. They still have that cup of love that they want to present to you, and to let you know that it has your name on it. This isn't just loving feelings. This isn't just they're flying on cloud nine, or on kind of this pink cloud of jubilation as a result of this kind of wondrous experience with you. That this is these feelings, this sensation, it all directly corresponds to you as the individual, the two of you together with one another. It's a pretty big kind of declaration, bold declaration, honest heart-to-heart conversation energy here. It feels like that your person is in the process of kind of scripting, strategizing, or, again, if like other things, literal kind of obligations in the material world are kind of keeping you at a distance, they're using this time while they're occupied with whatever else kind of has their attention, whatever else they're needing to deal with, whatever other busyness has them or has you kind of pulled away from your normal dealings with one another. They're using this time to really sort of formulate a plan and get very determined, get very ready about sort of how they're leading, rather than just moving in a passive kind of flow-based energy. When you reconnect with one another, there's the energy of wanting to dive in more deeply this next time around than they have up to this point. They also say the changes are real. So this can speak about opening their mind, widening their perspective about love and partnerships, seeing interfering, although well-meaning, perhaps forces or opinions or people in their life that didn't understand the connection, are not on this kind of level of experiencing higher and ascended love of this nature, to where if they'd been very kind of open about that, sort of confiding in others who had sown these seeds of doubt within them in the past, and they're seeing this as kind of like taking on these other people's sort of like pessimism or distortion, or just kind of like lack of an evolution and a consciousness level to be able to sort of understand or empathize with the concept of what the two of you have with one another. It's the idea of kind of changing and becoming more guarded, more protective of this connection, understanding that this connection is worth fighting for, it's worth preserving, it's worth protecting, it's worth defending. It is best served by not having prying eyes upon it. This person may be somebody who tries to be very honest, has maybe very specific people in their lives that they share a lot with. Those people may in some way have kind of influenced your person in the past to sort of question this connection, when they should have been leaning into the energies of having faith and trust and being very present, real time in the dealings with you in this connection. That it's something these other people just couldn't understand. It wasn't their story. It wasn't it's not kind of their experience to sort of grasp or to be able to empathize with directly. And it feels like this has been kind of a harsh lesson. If something within that has led to like the deflation between the two of you, this person not opening up about their feelings, missing a window of opportunity, and kind of just letting the momentum that you had built sort of deflate somewhat between the two of you, It's the idea of changing by way of maybe not opening up to these people in such a profound manner about the dealings between the two of you, not sharing so much about the nature of your interactions, not kind of, confessing or expressing a lot of these sort of subtle and special moments that the two of you have with one another, that this is almost something that they're looking at as a very precious energy. It's just a treasure between the two of you. It's not meant to be shared or experienced with everybody, and especially at this point where it feels like for a lot of you it's still just in this very tender stage of developing or needing to be rebuilt or repaired in a certain manner. So it's almost like changing their approach this time around. When you're able to sort of come back together with one another, time kind of brings you back toward one another, or if this is something where an apology is owed, it feels like this person is going to be the one to reach out first, to open those lines of communication, to give more rather than just sort of like sitting in their separate corner and expecting you to come to them. They're going to approach you, and this is something where they're wanting to come in more of the energy of, I want to defend this connection, I want to preserve this connection, I want this to just be something special between the two of us. And I understand now that this is outside of the box of what I've known. It's outside of the box of what anybody else in my life has the ability to kind of mentor me about, guide me about, advice that they've gotten, maybe, although well-meaning, solicited or unsolicited, it has led them off course in a certain way, even just internally within themselves. It's led to them disbelieving to a certain extent that what the two of you have with one another is real, that it is happening, that it's manifesting in real time. And so it's the energy of a decision to change, to be a little more just insulated about this, just the two of you, one-on-one. No need to kind of involve other people, the opinions of other people. This also really speaks to, fear, as far as like ghosts of the past, wounds about love, qualities of this connection that are so outside of what they've known, what is comfortable, what they've understood or experienced. Connection between two people, platonic or romantic, to be like up to this point. They're expanding their mind, they're expanding their knowledge, maybe even their spiritual base of knowledge, and it's really changing how they're perceiving this situation in you. If there had been some natural kind of skepticness, guardedness, they'd been a little on the fence about diving in fully or investing fully in this situation, it feels like these are changes for the better. There's an openness. Maybe they've connected with some kind of community. They view you as their soulmate, as their twin flame. It's like a soul connection between the two of you. There are others out there that are outside of their kind of day-to-day mundane reality who have similar or shared experiences, that they may be garnering a lot of knowledge in that sense. That as extraordinary as this is not totally outside of the box. It's almost just more niche than, say, your average kind of 3D connection here. And so it's something where it's really, these are changes for the better. They're starting to appreciate and cherish more of these unique qualities between the two of you, and wanting to really deliver that in how they are next approaching you. They also say, you are the only one who truly gets me. So your person feels very free to be a version of themselves that is not typically understood or accepted in their ordinary, mundane life reality, a version of them that is really being ushered forth to come out into the light of day, a deeply romantic and emotional person that they are within, that has been kind of tucked away in previous romances. It's a sense of almost bringing the 3D and the 5D and kind of blending that all together. It's inviting your person to open up and be more expressive about kind of the full range and polarity, all the intricacy that makes them themselves, kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly. They feel very comfortable sharing that, expressing that. They feel very seen in a non-judgmental and supportive capacity, but beyond just the energy of kind of like a best friend or a close family member who would have somebody's best interests at heart. There's a sense of almost kind of the two of you mirroring to one another these different polarities within self, where it's almost just kind of through the love and connection they experience with you, it's almost an instruction on self-love for themselves, that they are able to kind of see themselves from a different angle through your eyes and manifested within you. Things about you that trigger them. It's almost something where it's then leading them into a place of deeper acceptance that these qualities also reside and exist within them. Qualities about you that they really admire, that they may have been sort of doubting or had overlooked within themselves. Your interactions with one another have led them to the point where they're starting to really embrace more of the fullness of who they are. More of these high vibrational qualities that they have within that might have been obscured, had not been appreciated, had not been almost kind of like awakened or brought forth to the surface, but that have been unearthed through the nature of your dealings with one another. It feels like primarily energetically speaking, there's been a lot that's been activated within the two of you in this situation. So kind of like a very intense sort of push-pull dynamic internally speaking, but with that is almost this energy of unearthing a better version of themselves, or starting to realize that they are in real time and in an ever-changing way, always embodying that best version of self in its different facets, in its different polarities. And it's something where, they feel more kind of received and accepted for the totality of who they are, both their best qualities and kind of the deficits within, than they have in a long time or ever, and in many ways even more than they've been accepting of these things within themselves. But it's been very helpful for them to start to go within, it feels like, and to embrace more of the fullness of who they are through how they are embraced by you in this connection. They also say, I want to be vulnerable with you. So more of that confirmation of somebody who's getting ready to open up, to express deeper feelings to you, confessions of love, confessions of feeling, action steps and words and conversations that take this situation beyond implication, beyond nuance, beyond subtlety, making a very direct and declarative statement of intent. And from that, sort of opening new doors of possibility to what can develop between the two of you. This may even be something along the lines of, I know that we are soulmates. I see a future with you. I've never experienced a connection like this with anyone before. You stir something within me. You've awakened all these romantic feelings. It almost feels like a poet or a romantic side of themselves that has never had a voice or a venue before. For a lot of you, maybe really being stirred up and awakened within. Maybe really coming to the forefront within. You inspire your person to do things and to kind of be a version of themselves that they had overlooked. They had felt shamed about that part of them. It had been tucked away in the shadow, and they've really kind of been encouraged in the dealings with you to bring that forth into the light. They're understanding that this portion of them is necessary. Some more openness, emotionally speaking, and in a very direct manner, is necessary in order to be able to elevate this situation once again. It's required on their part in order to be able to kind of keep up with you vibrationally, so the two of you can continue to ascend in this connection. It's something where they feel safe to express themselves in that manner. If this is somebody who has been kind of wrestling with a fear of rejection that might have caused them to sort of hold back, they're nearing the point of just being willing to put it out on the line, put all the cards out on the table and say, this is who I am. This is what I feel for you inside. Are you with me in this? Do you reciprocate? Where can we go from here? Rather than kind of just tucking it away and holding back and having so much be so clear energetically speaking. But it feels like for a lot of you, there being this polarity between that energetic intensity, that magnetism, that chemistry, and then what has been directly spoken or articulated in the material sense. And that might have been kind of the deflation point. They didn't follow through with kind of like words. It was all just sort of this higher self and this energetic implication and, right on the tip of everybody's tongue and just not saying it. But they feel very determined and motivated to, again, be the one to be vulnerable, to open up, to make that confession, to give something to this connection in terms of a deeper kind of access to the range and nature of what they feel for you very directly, not just the feeling center within them, not just an emotional center within them, but direct feelings that they have for you that have been sort of sitting, have been brewing, have been growing inside of them. And it's time to sort of pour forth in that way, this kind of like watershed of love towards you. And they also say, I wasn't ready. So this can indicate a lot of changes that are taking place vibrationally within them, a lot of, worldviews, patterns, distortions that have needed to be looked at and cleared away in order to kind of create space, to make space for more of this vulnerable, emotional side of them to be expressed out into the material world. This connection might have really caught this person by surprise and caught you by surprise. This could be a friendship where deep feelings grew, that this was not the intention of either person to kind of go down this road with one another. There may have been on both sides people fighting their feelings, people trying to stuff, suppress, deny, keep it in the friend zone, keep it in the neat, nice tucked little box that the two of you had established with one another. Keep those original sort of boundaries and barriers that have been put in place directly or in an implied sense, and yet feelings were awakened, emotions were stirred, this deep energetic connection came to life beyond both of your control. And it's something that your person is really understanding and is able to admit and is grasping within themselves. This may have also kind of led them to seek outside validation, confirmation, other people who would give them some sort of perspective or words of wisdom about what was happening here. And it's almost like they went and they got the wrong advice. If they're seeking out other community, it might be people more in the spiritual community, or for a lot of people, this is almost sort of like they're listening to their own intuition. They're listening to their higher self. They're letting spirit guide them because they're understanding that, their fellow man, humankind, the people around them at least, or that they have access to, can't on many levels understand sort of what's happening between the two of you in a very unique sense. It's a very precious connection. It's something very special just between the two of you and the divine and kind of these extraordinary forces within and between you that are being created and really sort of highlighted and illustrated here. And so it's a sense of almost kind of like preparedness, readiness, arming and educating themselves with spiritual knowledge, deep self-introspection, taking a look at wounds and triggers within, how they have kind of been templated as far as like love and partnerships is concerned, ways in which they were concerned about how does this situation, how's this going to fit into my world, how's this going to fit into my reality, what are people going to think of this, what's this going to look like, and kind of comparing it to matters in the 3D world, people around them, again sort of seeking the advice of those who weren't necessarily educated or in a position to speak on such a connection, because it's not been part of their experience, not part of their soul plan in this lifetime or yet. They're kind of locked into the material, they're locked into the mundane, they're locked into a particular vibration. And so it's almost kind of like concepts or experiences that were outside of other people's ability to comprehend or to give very educated advice about. Your person is really starting to understand that this is a journey within. This is a place where they're being called to kind of this ledge of trust, where it takes a leap of faith, trusting in kind of the wings that will develop within them, or that have developed within them through kind of like their dealings with you, to be able to carry them to that vibration necessary to open the door to something more with you, an energy of preparing themselves to be very sustainable and self-sustaining in that matter, rather than needing outside validation or comparing this situation to what they've known of love in the past, comparing the situation to who they thought would be that forever person coming in for them, or the individual they thought they were trying to manifest, and then what has actually turned up, what the universe has actually delivered to them in the form of this connection that is vibrationally that wish fulfillment they've been seeking to call in for themselves. During this kind of stage, whether you're physically at a distance, energetically at a distance, communication is sort of ebbed away between the two of you. Your person has been thinking, your person has been kind of scratching beneath the surface, looking very deeply within themselves, readying themselves for some kind of profound declaration, some sort of drastic action that pivots this connection in a very positive sort of upward narrative arc from where you've left things with one another. They also say, I regret what happened. So missed opportunity is weighing heavily upon them. They regret not having confessed their feelings to you sooner, not having opened up and trusting that the two of you could work your way through this. You could discuss your way through this, that, you know, they feel very safe to be seen in the totality of who they are. And yet when fears came up, it's almost kind of like they backed away. They sort of tucked their head away in a bit of shame, or sought out counsel of those who never even truly really understood them on this core level. They sort of left the comfort zone and kind of went out into the wilds, out into the wilderness, back down into the 3D mundane world, when they were really accessing something on like a higher plane of vibration. All of this being kind of a learning experience, kind of an education for them, in order to be able to really sort of appreciate and understand, again, from like an eagle's eye perspective, sort of the value of what the two of you have with one another, something that is allowing them to cherish this connection, to treasure this connection, to want to fight to resurrect this, or to pivot this to the next level, to preserve and protect this from doubt within themselves, or even kind of dissension that might be sown within the situation by people external to yourselves. And they also say, it is all my fault. So if you have been kind of feeling deflated, wondering if you came on too strong, you gave the wrong impression, you were asking too much, or maybe we're reading too much into the situation, because it feels like for a lot of you, this is like thick chemistry, but very little that's been spoken directly about the nature of feelings. And so any kind of like letdown or disappointment, although there may have been sort of like physical misunderstanding in terms of like words between the two of you, or some kind of a disagreement, feels like a lot of this is just energetically. You had some kind of force or flow that you were moving through, and it all became tangled and sort of unraveled to a certain extent. And now it's just kind of, it's two people sort of dealing with their own sort of side of things, not really sure how to kind of move forward from here. And your person is really admitting that although it takes two to tango, sort of this threshold that you've just come from, where now there's a need to kind of rebuild, there's a need for this kind of grand gesture or dramatic kind of display on their part, they feel, to sort of bring things back up to where you were with one another. It is due to some sort of misstep on their part, some sort of doubt within, a fear within, a questioning within, kind of being picked at by lower vibrations within their life that were sort of triggered, or not really understanding kind of this higher vibration that is awakened within your person through their dealings with you. Almost like they radiate higher, their light is brighter, and then they go back into their mundane reality, and people that don't necessarily operate at that frequency were sort of making them feel really ashamed, or feeling like they had to sort of dim their light. And this happening over a period of time may have caused them to really sort of question or doubt how healthy this connection was for them. Was this really in their best interest? Was this really something positive that was happening? Because it was creating a lot of triggering and dissonance in kind of their other relationships in their life. They're seeing things from a new perspective, though, that any lens that they were kind of comparing this to in the past, that this is sort of uncharted waters. This is new territory between the two of you. The rules of love that they've known up to this point, or that most other people in their life are operating under, don't apply to this situation. And so it's a profound energy of your person really stepping into sort of autonomy, sovereignty, thinking for themselves, and those thoughts are leading them to the point of, I want to take action by way of some kind of deep emotional confession, declaration, effort, extension of myself towards you, in order to be able to kind of pick up from where we left off, and sort of move to a higher plane and plateau, continue along this sort of ascent with one another, to explore what else this journey has in store for the two of us. So I'm going to get some initials, and this can be a first, middle, or last name of you or your person, or it can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. D, L, S, A, B, W, I, J, W, P, Y, U, S, M, V, O, V, B, X, U, Q, Z, R, F, and P. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, channeled letters, including a longer video version of this reading that involves more cards and more decks. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link to that channel in the description box of the video, as well as in the channel section of my page. The format over there consists of readings related to topics other than love and romance. So if you're looking for something a little different from me, that is the place to find it. I thank you for your support there, as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 3. You chose the Selenite. So I'm going to be getting 3 cards from 3 different decks, and let's see, what does your person want you to know right now from their higher self? Okay, and they say, I know that I've hurt you. I'm sorry. So they're having some regret as far as how they have handled your heart, love that you have expressed to them directly or indirectly, and ways in which they may have told you that they loved you back, may have said that they had feelings, but then their actions was telling a very different story. A sense of letdown here, a sense of not following through, not acting sooner to prove to you just how much you mean to them. Ways in which they may have let life kind of carry their attention away. They could have taken out stress and frustration upon you, a sense of feeling almost that they, on some level, we're using this connection as kind of a dumping ground for a lot of stress and pressure that they're experiencing. It feels, for the most part, to be motivated by a sense of recognizing you as some sort of energetic sanctuary, a place where they were really free to just sort of let down their guard, let down their walls to a certain extent, or a sense of just comfort and familiarity with you, to be very open about a full range of things in their life that maybe they haven't really had an outlet for. Stress and pressure of maybe a spiritual nature, an emotional nature, an existential nature that they've kind of expressed to you on a certain level, but understanding as well that it's maybe not been an equal kind of give and take situation. There may have been opportunities for them to really sense into your emotional needs, the need for space, or the need for them to come forth and be more of a support system for you, and they kind of failed in that effort, or were very kind of oblivious to your needs in a certain manner of an emotional nature or otherwise, and it's filling them with a sense of regret that they have made you feel taken for granted, that they made you feel used in any way, or underappreciated. It's kind of a melancholic energy right here, that even if you're still in communication with one another, you're still talking and dealing with one another, there's a sense of wishing that they had expressed to you up to this point in time more deeply just how much gratitude they have for you, how much they really appreciate your presence in their life, how much of a healing presence you have represented for them. Advice, wisdom that you've shared, just how much this has soothed them. Even the process of talking with you, energetically speaking, this feels to be the energy of somebody who, when you speak, they hear your words in their heart space, that it's beyond the words, it's a vibration in your voice, in your energy, that really translates something to them on the soul level, that may have led to a sense of them just feeling that they could open up with you in a way that is uncharacteristic for them. This could be somebody who has trust issues, doesn't open up very easily, but with you they've just felt themselves to be this kind of flowing stream of energy and information, just an openness here that is very uncharacteristic, or that was very necessary for them at this particular point in their life when they've kind of come into contact with you, but that they're really understanding that in order to sustain this connection, or to repair this connection, even if things have gotten, maybe you've had to put up some walls and some barricades towards this person, if it's just been very one-sided, they've just been kind of dumping, energetically speaking. They haven't really been there for you in your hour of need. They haven't really been adding to the measure of your existence in a very positive way, but have just been bringing a lot of density and negativity and distortion of just a personal nature, of like a personal vibrational quality into this situation. They're really starting to understand how you are someone who deserves to be kind of cherished more, treated better, or this very unique situation between the two of you, it should be preserved. It shouldn't just be a dumping ground for their toxicity, but almost for every bit of negativity that they bring into the situation. They're understanding that they need to kind of also bring this redeeming energy of sweetness to it. They may be understanding as well, especially if you're an empath, that you may have really taken on a lot of this person's shadow, a lot of their distortion, that they almost unconsciously sort of passed along a lot of this density to you, to alchemize or to help them deal with. And it doesn't feel like anything where they were doing it in kind of the sense of trying to use you. This may have just been very unconscious. They may have been very unaware, or didn't really understand this quality about you to kind of sponge up other people's energy, but they're sensing in some way, maybe based on barriers you've had to put up around them, that this connection with them has taken a toll upon you energetically, that you're kind of in self-preservation mode at this point in time, needing to do what you have to do in order to kind of heal, keep your vibration high and strong. Maybe you've kind of come to an awareness about this. It's been a tough decision, but you've needed to kind of back away from your person to a certain extent. And they're understanding kind of the hurt, the difficulty in that decision, or the fact that it would have been motivated out of this kind of energetic necessity on your part. This has really been, it has opened their eyes to something that in the past, if someone would have done this, they may have just kind of projected blame, leaned into an energy of sort of, a feeling of lack within. Well, I guess I'm not good enough. I guess I'm just a bad person. I guess I just kind of ruin whatever situation I get in. I guess I'm too much to deal with, whatever that kind of narrative would have looked like. But it feels like in this situation with you, it's almost opened their eyes to the fact that it's like they are in need of some better kind of like coping or processing mechanisms within. It almost feels like a very startling turn of events, that unlike kind of a typical sort of reaction they would have had to something like this, that they're almost kind of viewing the world through your eyes, and it's helping them to understand more deeply a way to kind of move toward being of service to themselves in the dealings with their own kind of pain, shadow, and distortion, rather than sort of seeking people outside of themselves to be kind of that source of numbing, that source of alleviation, someone to really help them with their burdens. Your actions toward them has been very instructional as far as them finally maybe kind of getting a clue that they need to start to really help themselves very profoundly. And with that being said, it's also this energy of kind of that they need to start bringing a different kind of vibration to the table with you, not in an artificial sense where they're just like leaning all into this kind of false light and love polarity, but it's almost they've shown you or provided you or been felt very safe to open up about a lot of heaviness and darkness, even just energetically, to introduce that in. And there's a sense of understanding that this connection's become a bit lopsided, which has created some response mechanism consciously or unconsciously within you, and that there's a need for them now to sort of show you more of that tenderness that they hold within, that nobody is all kind of light or all sort of shadow. And this almost feels to be something that could have stemmed from like a wounded mechanism within. They were almost vetting you out. Are you going to still love me? Are you going to still want to deal with me? Are you going to still want to still be with me if you're seeing kind of the weight of the darkness I hold within? They're understanding it's crossed a line to a certain extent, though, or in order to move forward with you or pick up the pieces here, it's going to require them kind of now moving out of this period of testing you or testing this connection again, maybe just subconsciously or energetically, that you've earned this position in their life to where if anyone is deserving of kind of the sweetness and the love and kind of the levity that they hold within, it's you, it's this situation. That this is something where they may recognize you being in an hour of need for them at this particular point in time, and they're understanding that they've hurt you by not kind of being there for you, literally or energetically or emotionally. And so it's this desire to like provide apology by way of changed actions or a changed energy that they are very consciously pouring in. That as much as they may still have a lot of darkness to personally sift through, it's almost like they're trying to sort of harness the light they hold within to give some more of that to you. So it's not so much heaviness when you're dealing with one another, but that it's more you're pouring into each other's cups more reciprocally. They also say, I think of you every day. That is how much I love you. So you've made a very profound impression upon your person. You represent a safe space, a sanctuary for them. Also, you've been very educational for them, even without words, just something energetically speaking to where a triggered mechanism, it feels like, for a lot of you to put up some kind of barrier, some kind of wall, some kind of guard against this person. Maybe even something where your spirit team has stepped in and created some sort of a boundary in terms of real world conditions that have led to distance between the two of you, or just a sense of them recognizing something's different. You're shielded in a different sort of way. You have this kind of like force field around you now that wasn't always there in the past. And this is something that in other circumstances where something like this might have happened, they would have taken it very personally and kind of leaned into their shadow, gone on the defensive, just really kind of projected blame and sort of moved on in a wounded stance, just chalked it up to another person that let them down, another disappointment, someone else who rejected them, just all of that kind of like negative polarity. But in this situation, it's almost kind of like it's provided them this very surprising illustration that this doesn't mean that they're a bad person, but that it's almost just they need to start taking ownership for kind of maintaining or some maintenance on their own kind of energy, what they bring to the table in circumstances and situations, to really open their eyes. It feels like for a lot of you, without words, this is all just energetic. There's something that's happened with sort of your spirit team or your ancestors kind of shielding you from how this person is able to intrude or have access to you, how they're able to kind of penetrate your energy when you're dealing with one another, either from afar or in your sort of direct interactions. And it's been something that's given them a lot to think about. They are very aware of kind of, it feels like now, a pattern within. They bring a lot of kind of woundedness to people. They are then pushed out of people's lives, or situations sort of unravel. It's maybe somebody who tends to get in a lot of like one-sided connections. They overgive by way of distortion. They overgive by way of kind of like a shadowy version of themselves. They test people. They almost try to show the worst or the most dense of what they hold inside to say, are you still going to be there? Are you still going to call me in the morning? Are you still going to want to participate or play with me if you're seeing kind of these less desirable qualities. And it feels like time and again this has been a tactic which has kind of broken bonds with people, that it's been it's a lot to deal with. And it feels like something where it really stems from this energy of the light they hold within. They're very self-protective of that. They may have been kind of used in the past for that. They may have been somebody who, with this energy of kind of, they're giving a lot of darkness, they may be an overgiver, and that has been something where in the past they poured too much into connections. It's led to them kind of losing out, being taken advantage of, feeling very kind of underappreciated for the fullness of who they are. And so they've almost kind of, they've pivoted into a place of wounding as a result of what had been projected upon them by wounded people. And then they've sort of barreled through life for a period of time like that. They've collided with you in this kind of, it doesn't feel like the way they've always been, but it's almost like a, relatively speaking, newly adopted approach for them. And they've hit a wall with you in this situation that just says no more. This is not the way to deal with your wounding. And so it feels to be something that's been very eye-opening. It's been very startling for them. All that has been translated energetically, all that has kind of been shown to them as far as work they need to do to finally sort of heal that wound within, to where they're not just leading with kind of the energy of density. They're not feeling that every sort of good interaction must be followed up with something unpleasant, to make sure that it's balanced, to make sure that the people that they have in their life or in their circle really want to be involved with them for the fullness of who they are, and not just for what can be gained or the benefits that are provided. It's something where they're really starting to see through how they've treated you, and sort of what has happened energetically, what the repercussions of that has been, the aftermath of that, the hurt that has caused, how that has changed or depleted or affected your energy and your energy towards them in some manner. It's almost kind of like this beautiful door has opened for them that is really beckoning them, perhaps for the first time, to start to do some of this cleanup work, this healing within themselves, understanding that this kind of wound within that they hold, and that being sort of the leading factor in how they're approaching interpersonal dynamics, that this can't continue, that it's just going to lead to more and more loss for them. So some element of kind of, it feels like your soul contract with one another that has been really brought to their attention through this energy of kind of like hurt and energetic pain or wounding that has been caused in this situation, that has really sort of shown them ways in which they need to kind of take personal ownership for their own healing journey. And they also say, can you please forgive me and let go of the past? So they are wanting to come towards you in a different energy, more softness, more tenderness. They may be taking some time to kind of like heal and introspect, respecting your boundaries, recognizing or being very cognizant of that. That might even be something where their energy towards you has kind of shut down in a certain way. They've gone cold and you're kind of wondering where that's coming from. They're sensing something that might not even be perceptible to you, especially if your spirit team or your angels or your ancestors have really surrounded you and are cloaking you, and it's in a way that, you know, they're of you, they're of your essence. You're maybe not discerning that necessarily as much. You may be getting signs or kind of these intuitive nudges and hits that like you're protected, or, you know, signs that like spirit is around you. But from the outside view, from the outside vantage point, it's being registered or received by this person as kind of like a keep out sign. It's a force field, energetically speaking. They can't approach in the same way. It's almost kind of like when they're bringing that darkness or density to you, it's kind of like returning to them tenfold in a way. It's sort of like these warning signs, kind of like back off, that's coming. Not very consciously, it feels like from you, although to a certain degree you may have had to kind of set some boundaries with them, but it feels even larger than that. There's kind of like a larger force at play here that is sort of your larger kind of spiritual factors in your life moving into protective mode and mechanism. That this is kind of like this dynamic with this person could not continue on in this manner and lead to very healthy consequences for you, energetically speaking. So almost like instinctually there's been some sort of bubble that's been created. And this is really, it feels like that bubble has been the mirror that has really provided your person with kind of a clue or a wake-up call of sort of like for some reason they're seeing it now where they had not perceived or been able to recognize that when other people had sort of set up barriers. Maybe because a lot of this is just sort of instinctual. It's just coming not from an energy of sort of woundedness and pushing them away, but it's very much like a self-protective mechanism for you that is, it's showing them through kind of like a gentle version of tough love almost, that they need to sort of work on themselves, that they've sort of reached the end of the road with a certain energy that they've been bringing to you and kind of dumping into this connection. And that in order to kind of continue forth, in order to be able to return or to resume sort of the flow between the two of you, it's going to require some work on their part. They have some things that they're needing to unclutter from themselves. They're having some things they need to unpack or clarify or kind of remove, or at the very least just sort of recognize and look at. Take the power out of that festering wound by acknowledging that it exists within, as a very crucial first step to kind of regaining some sort of access or admittance to you. And so that can really be this energy of where they've felt they've gone cold all of a sudden. It's because they've run into your force field. They can't enter, and they've kind of been pivoted off in their own direction, sort of like, oh, I guess I need to do something within myself. It's going to require a different approach, that they're understanding they can't bring the same kind of, they can't bring the same tools to this project anymore. They're in the process of sort of forming and refashioning, or coming to a deeper understanding of how to utilize some kind of tools, and even wounding within themselves more to their advantage, and yes, less to kind of the disadvantage of opportunities for closeness with other people. So it does feel like kind of an apology by way of changed action in some sort of manner that your person is in the process of constructing currently. They also say, I am overcoming my fears. So this also confirms that idea of somebody who may be in a stage of their life where they test people before they show the sweetness of who they are. They're going to demonstrate that sour. They're going to make sure that people are there for them when the chips are down, so that they're able to reveal, or they feel trusting to reveal just the profound wealth that they hold inside in terms of like light and tenderness. This does not feel like an inherently kind of negative or an overly distorted person. They're a damaged person, they're a wounded person, but they also have a lot of kind of light within themselves that they're sheltering, they're self-protecting, they're very greedy with that because it's been misused in the past. They've squandered it in the past. They've poured it almost very selflessly into directions that did not reciprocate, and they've been depleted on more than one occasion, or let down very profoundly. And rather than kind of like healing or becoming more discerning, it almost feels like they flipped into the opposite polarity of, I'm just going to lead with kind of the least desirable, energetically speaking, that I hold within. I'm going to make sure that I don't give too much sweetness to the connection, because I got to balance it out with some sour until a person, proves that they're willing to be there for me through thick and thin. That it's almost just kind of, it's a strategy that may have been really concocted out of a place of deep and profound wounding within, a fear of getting hurt again. And so almost trying to vet people out in an overly kind of wounded way, basically, as far as this sort of tactic or strategy. Some of this might be kind of intellectual. It may be almost like a little chess game that they were playing. It feels a lot of this is very subconscious. It's coming from almost just sort of a trick of the ego, sort of like, well, this will create different results. And meanwhile, the ego is kind of just being very greedy and holding that light within themselves. And understanding that most people, of sound mind would not likely put up with a situation that it's very just kind of one-sided, and it's a lot of stuff being dumped and not a lot kind of flowing in the other direction. But that energy of kind of pushing people, keeping people at a distance through this kind of mechanism, it protects, it preserves that tender center inside that is very afraid of being hurt again, that never fully recovered from wounds of the past. So something where they almost have been operating in self-sabotage. They've been their own worst enemy, and they've really hit a wall in this situation that has bounced them into a new direction, it feels like, to uncovering some of the deeper truths of this tactic, this polarity, because it feels like for most people, they haven't always been like this. There was a turning point at some point in time which has allowed them to then go back to that crossroads. They bounced off your force field energetically, and they're back at that choice point where they picked up this kind of new strategy that has not been working to their advantage in terms of their highest good or very harmonious relationships. And it's really affording them a chance to kind of overcome their fear, to actually go back within the wound, do some healing in the interest of kind of leaning into the possibility that maybe love doesn't have to hurt. Maybe in this situation, if it's possible to course correct, things might actually go better than expected. That maybe their heart is safe here. Maybe they are safe to be seen for the fullness of who they are. Maybe it's safe to pour and to invest into this situation, because you're the kind of person that isn't going to just take advantage of that, isn't just going to take to the point where they're emptied out and then leave them as a husk, but that you're the kind of person that understands very deeply the importance of reciprocity, so much to the point that your instincts or your kind of determination, as much love and affection as you may feel for this person, has caused you to kind of put up your walls against them, to say no more, maybe even just doing that energetically so as not to kind of wound or inflict unnecessary kind of hurt upon them. And that this is something that's been very kind of educational for them, as far as ways in which they need to kind of course correct in their own life to be able to bring something different to you and the situation, and ultimately a new path moving forward in their life as a whole. They also say, I won't let you go. So they're not wanting to miss an opportunity with you. They're wanting to really go within, start to do some heavy lifting, some hard work, understanding more deeply the nature of their patterns, their woundings, how that has led to kind of the situation bottoming out between the two of you, what it is they've been bringing to the table that has not served this situation. It's the idea of, rather than losing you or letting this connection go at this particular point in time, it feels like they're very much fixated or focused on letting go of some of the wounding within, letting go of some of the mistrust of love within, some of this kind of like these sort of spikes or this armor that they have on that sort of pushes people away when confronted with kind of the potential of connection or affection. It's almost they won't allow themselves to fully drink up of that or pour into it. They're almost just kind of testing and sort of pushing to see where's the limit, how far can something be bent before it breaks, and that this is something that they are now understanding. This is not serving their highest good. It hasn't served their highest good in terms of like their life in general. It doesn't serve their highest good moving forward. And it's something that if they don't deal with this in some manner or sort of rewrite this programming within, then they stand to lose the opportunity with you to either reconnect or to have a future going forward. They also say your words speak to me like no others can. So this is somebody that hears you in the heart space. They hear beyond the words that you speak. You have activated and awakened a deep potential for love and affection. A part of them, that self-protected part, that light within that they have been very greedy about, that they have been keeping other people, including you, at an arm's length from. There's a recognition that, other people they might have dealt with in the past, this sense of guardedness could have been very, very justified. It feels like the wounding pattern within them has been sending out signals that has been magnetizing in people and situations that reinforce that wounding, so that it becomes the self-fulfilling prophecy. Dumping negativity in only to be pushed away, and then to be able to have that kind of validation of self, see things fall apart. That has worked effectively for them for a period of time to keep this wound alive, to keep this wound fed and hidden in the dark. Something about the nature of the two of you dealing with one another, or again, all this kind of like darkness that they've poured into you, ways in which you have really, you've been a shoulder for them, you've held space for them, you've given them words of advice, words of wisdom, you've helped talk them through things, talk them off these various ledges in terms of like emotional crisis within themselves even, different sort of circumstances they were dealing with in their life. You've really helped them to unpack a lot, and it's more than just in like a helpful capacity. There's something that really has not only helped to sort of undo these knots within, but you've helped to really sort of shine a light on this center that they hold within themselves, that wants deeper love, wants deeper partnership, doesn't want to just move through the rest of their life in this energy of kind of pushing people away, keeping love at arm's length out of the fear of being hurt again. You're encouraging them to sort of step out of the dark, step out of their personal darkness, and to entertain the possibility that there is still the light of love, which is attainable and accessible to them. As much as that has been very evasive up to this point, that there have been suggestions of that only to be followed up with disappointment or things that fell apart. You're encouraging this person to give love another try, but most importantly, to start with themselves first and foremost, to rescue themselves from this kind of fortress that they've locked the best of them away in. And that this is something which it's very unlike people that they've dealt with in the past, that may have had hidden motives, or they were self-serving. They were in it for something. They saw the light within your person and wanted to kind of take that or extract that, utilize that, and give nothing back. They see you as somebody who is a giver. You are a healer, you are an empath, you are a light in the darkness for this person, for many people. You represent that. But more than just kind of wanting to lean on you as a crutch, which they may have done up to this point in time to a certain extent, almost kind of like siphoning some vibration off of you as a way to kind of self-sustain before they have been kind of at this place of readiness to really harvest their own kind of deep potential for harmony and balance that truly originates from within. You've shown them that pathway. You've shown them that very direct route. And even through these energetic barriers, you are demonstrating to them, this is what love of self looks like. This is a version of it. It is not, pushing people away out of a fear of being hurt. It's understanding the limits within oneself when lines and thresholds have been crossed into the realm of the toxic and the unhealthy and the lopsided. And despite all the love, despite all the connection, despite all the kind of flow and chemistry between two people, to be able to love oneself enough to say no more and kind of create that preservation of self. That this is something that it has mirrored to this person healthier boundaries that they may not have really been at a stage of their journey or had not really been able to understand was possible before. So you've really kind of shown them some sort of deeper truth within. It's a very surprising reaction as far as whatever's taken place here. It's very contradictory to how normally when things kind of change or become weird or awkward or start to fall apart or do fall apart, they usually go off the rails in a very different direction. A lot of blame, a lot of running, a lot of just sort of feeding into that distortion and wound. But in this situation with you, it's almost like something has been tapped into that they weren't even necessarily aware within until this sort of colliding occurred, until this sort of dismantling of whatever the dynamic, however it has existed up to this point in time, occurred, that now they're kind of like looking at their own reflection and they're not as quick to sort of run from that, or they're seeing it in a different way. They're seeing hope and possibility that they might be able to be changed out of this circumstance for the better, rather than just kind of like leaning more deeply into that shadow and kind of missing the opportunity for growth out of difficulty. They also say, please forgive me. So more of that energy of wanting to provide you with apology in the form of changed actions. Somebody who is taking the initiative at this point in time to really sit and analyze and observe this pattern of wounding within themselves that has created interference here, that has created this instinct within you energetically, or a literal necessity for you to kind of like cut things back with this person, cut things off with this person, something where they were really taking you for granted, or it was very sort of, it became very one-sided. It became very apparent that they were not in a place to be reciprocal with you, that it was starting to just be something where they were taking and giving very little to the situation. That this is something that they're having a lot of regret that this has occurred, but it feels like more than just pity party. They're motivated to make some sort of change within, so that they can move back towards you in more of a balanced energy within themselves, to be able to hopefully sort of repair and restore some balance to the situation. They also say we need to talk. So they're wanting to resume communication with you. They're wanting to give some sort of an explanation to you. They miss talking to you. They miss discussing things with you. They miss kind of seeing the way your mind works, how the way the world looks through your eyes. Your voice speaks to them energetically. You speak to them at a soul level. It goes far beyond the literal nature of the conversations, the words that you're having. There's something at a deep core level that resonates with them through their interactions with you. And so it feels like they're at a place right now of understanding what needs to be sort of offloaded from themselves in order to be able to move into more of a place where they're able to unlock the gates around their heart, to be able to let you in, even if they still have a lot of darkness that they're dealing with in their life. This doesn't feel like an energy of somebody who's like, well, I better just lean into this false love and light polarity and be all sweet and sugar all the time, and that's the way I get back into this situation. There's an understanding that that's just as much of a distortion as whatever kind of pessimism or sourness that they were kind of bringing into the situation was, that they can't just go from one extreme to another, but it's a matter of kind of like honoring where they're at, honoring the heaviness they may be experiencing in their life at this stage of their journey, and also understanding that they need to kind of bring more as far as reciprocity in the situation in the form of lighter energy, in the form of positivity, in the form of holding space for you, allowing you to also utilize this connection as a place where you can feel safe to be seen, where you can feel that somebody is holding space for you to really unpack and be your most vulnerable. Where they're hearing beyond the words that you're speaking and really receiving energetically, where they're sending you that healing vibration. It feels like they have it within. It's just locked away. They've been very greedy with it. They've been very hesitant to pour into somebody's cup in such a profound manner as the result of some kind of heartbreak or a series of heartbreaks, disappointments, people in their lives, platonically or romantically, that have used them systematically. This can also be somebody who's an empath and they've maybe leaned into the polarity of the dark empath. They've taken on the dark triad of personality traits as a result of kind of wounding within themselves. That this has been sort of a survival mechanism. But this dynamic with you, it encourages them to take down that armor and move into a place where they're willing to experience the opportunity to thrive once again, not just single-handedly, but in an evolving dynamic with another person. They also say, I wish I could be with you. So they are wishing that they could meet you at your level to be able to provide you with the same degree of safety, healing, understanding, patience that you have provided to them up to this point in time. It feels that they are taking steps as far as introspection, at the very least at this point, maybe even kind of learning some new coping mechanisms within, facing some of these wounds, facing the shadows, looking at themselves very directly in the emotional mirror, trying to figure out what it's going to take to be able to bring forth to you a true balanced vibration within, which they understand is going to be the only key that gets through that force field that's around you. That the time for kind of like trickery and chess games and strategy and dark triad personality traits, that's over. That is done. You've moved beyond that situation. It's really something which it's purely energetic at this point in time. There's no faking this. They're going to have to bring forth something that is a lot more measured and balanced than what they were kind of pouring into the situation when things sort of unraveled between the two of you, or what led to the unraveling that now there's some kind of barrier up that they're needing to find a way through. So it's the idea of kind of with the wishing energy, looking toward the horizon, looking toward the future, and understanding that it's going to take some work within, that this is some heavy lifting. These are wounds that they have deliberately kind of tucked away. They packed them away. They haven't dealt with this. These things have been festering within them for quite some time. Prior to them coming into your life, this has kind of been, it's been a pattern. It's been an occurrence in at least, one other kind of potential situation, probably several, that this kind of same series of events has played out. They poured in a lot of darkness. Other people have pushed back or rejected them, dumped them, left them, put up barriers and walls, whatever that looks like, and they then leaned into the place of just projecting blame. Now they're taking responsibility, it feels like, for the first time ever. And so at this point, it's kind of wishful thinking. It's like, I hope I can get to that point where I have something more balanced within me to be able to bring to the table that gains admittance to the place of we're building trust with one another once again. But at this point in time, it's still, they're some steps away from being able to really present you with something different than they were bringing to the table before, but they're motivated to change for the better in a way that it feels like is very startling for them. It's very profound for them, and it's also a deep motivation for them. So I'm going to get some initials, and this can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or it can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Got Y, J, C, R, D, S, M, E, U, L, B, I, T, G, V, M, E, Y, G, Q, Z, O, and H. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters, including a longer video version of this reading that involves more cards and more decks. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link to that channel in the description box of the video, as well as in the channel section of my page. The format over there consists of readings related to topics other than love and romance. So if you're looking for something a little different from me, that is the place to find it. I thank you for your support there, as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well.